Greetings and salutations, my fellow jackalopes. As I, Eric J. Chucky, joined, as always, by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and this week, this one's a little different, guys.
Yeah, so, essentially, Spork has a very interesting story he would like to tell me, and I don't know what the hell it's about, other than, like, some vague generalities. We're stealing this from another podcast. You can probably guess if you've heard it. I'm not sorry.
I don't expect this to become a regular thing because,
there's a dearth of interesting stories that overlap with what we tend to cover here on the Two Nerds Podcast.
Well, and furthermore, upon several analyses, I don't react to things. Like, if I were to be invited to some kind of YouTubers React compilation, first of all, whoa, everybody else busy? Everybody else busy. Secondly, I'd just be like, oh, that was interesting.
Oh.
Thank you for sharing it with me.
Could be the most ridiculous, over-the-top, wacky bullshit you've ever seen. He'll watch the whole thing and go,
I'm just not like, I mean, like, obviously if something's funny, I'll laugh. If something's shocking, I might go, whoa. But, like, I do it like a fucking boomer. Like, oh, gosh. You know, looking at my phone, maybe adjust my non-existent glasses. It's not, it's not like, I don't know, whatever the fuck people, I actually don't watch reaction videos now that I'm trying to summon up with how people react to things.
It depends entirely upon the reaction video. Oftentimes it is somewhere between silently watch the entire video whilst making faces, which is fair use, by the way, but boy howdy is that on the line. Or pause the video every 2.56 nanoseconds to do an entire diatribe about the preceding 2.56 nanoseconds. And not much in between.
I guess I have watched a couple of people watching a thing. Like, I mean, they're reaction videos, but they're not what I think of when I think of a reaction video. You know what I mean?
Like, in a way, the Markiplier Try Not to Laugh challenge is a reaction video.
Sure. Or I watch Maximilian Dude, and he reacts to, like, fighting game trailers, but not like...
Oh, yeah, that's just a straight-up reaction.
But not like, it's not... He's giving his opinion and not like, whoa, oh my god, oh, what? How do you have two?
But is he doing silently watching while making faces, or is he pausing a million times?
It depends on the trailer.
Okay, fair enough.
Usually he'll sit and watch through it and be like, wow, that was cool, dudes.
Just sit silently.
It's happening, I can't believe it. Is this Dan? Yeah, and it was Dan.
There we go.
Anyway,
is this Dan?
I'm not very entertaining when it comes to that, and he's a lot more into stories, learning thing. I don't know. I sound like some sort of fucking Luddite over here.
Him like stories. Me don't like stories.
Me not fond
Me
of
like meat and sunshine. Me am grog.
I do not care for sunshine.
I know, that was the joke.
But I do like meat.
Meat is good.
So... Anyway, that's the first part of it. This is an outlier for us. Secondly, for those of you who know what the Final Fantasy VII house is, that was the sound of your seatbelt buckling. For those of you who don't, well, there's a couple of things you might need to know. First of all, this treads on some slightly more sensitive topics that we don't tend to cover on the Two Nerds Podcast. Nothing too crazy, but, well, actually, yes, some crazy shit. But, like, bear with us here. And you know what? Take the journey with us, too, I guess. There might be some spoilers for the game Final Fantasy VII here. If you haven't seen that, played that, you think you might, maybe even the remake, just give us that like button and leave a comment saying, thanks guys, I'll catch you next week.
There you go.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Buy my books. Sub to the Patreon. Maybe if I get a lot of subs, I'll start an OnlyFans. Ka-ching.
You guys don't get that joke because you can't see the face he was making.
Enzo Amore has one. He just, like, does Enzo Amore rants on it. You don't even have to pay him. He just desperately wants you to listen to him.
A different YouTuber I follow has one where he berates you for watching porn.
It has other uses. You can read it for the articles. Theoretically, someone could be entirely oblivious to the booby aspect of OnlyFans. Theoretically. Anyhow. I don't know how to get into this. This is a weird fucking piece of happenstance that, like, haunted me years ago. I don't know. It seems kind of tame now in 2020, but I'm going to share it with my friend the boy.
Yep, it's on the screen in front of us. I'm going to be doing my best not to actually read ahead so that you will get my unfiltered reactions to the shit that's coming out of his mouth. Let's hear.
Yes, so this is story time kind of also.
Yeah,
Isn't that nice?
A little story time with me as your insane uncle who's also hearing the story.
It's actually the other way around. I think you're Fred Savage in this scenario because I will be editing certain things.
Fair enough.
Or is it Ben Savage?
I don't remember or know.
Friend Savage.
Friend Savage. Oh my god, that's a really funny joke.
We're off to a good start. The website that this is being pulled from was put up by the original poster of the situation, and it begins with a splash screen. A public warning. Final Fantasy VII fandom. If you Google Final Fantasy VII House, among some visual entries for the actual monster in the game that is an evil house.
Okay.
You will find this website. A public warning. This is the one you're looking for. There's a bunch of other stuff on here I'm not going to look at or cover because it's just unnecessary. We don't need to be here for that long. But, if you'd like to Google it, if you'd like to dig a little deeper and lose your fucking mind, it's there for you. So, the following pages are a compiled list of stories and data about a group of individuals on the internet who prey on unsuspecting fans of various video games, TV shows, and movies. They take money, time, self-worth, self-confidence, sanity, and freedom away from those they target, sucking them to a schizophrenic constructed fantasy cult based around the things they once loved. This is 100% non-fictional. There's some pretty sick stuff in here. Violence, sexuality, physical abuse, etc. So please be aware if you wish to proceed. I wish this was a joke, but thanks to the internet, it's not. Be aware the events which happened in some of these stories, like mine, happened years ago. Many of the people involved have patched up their lives and moved on, but still wish to warn others against horrors like those they experienced. Many of them got into these situations because they were young, around early college age, and stupid around early college age. This page is not for them. It's for the people who are the ideal prey for this group of individuals. Or, those who have horrendous train wreck syndrome.
All right, so we're about to go into cult land, I imagine. That sounds like we're about to have a fun time.
Yeah. There's a list of phrases in here, but I'll cover it as we go along.
Okay.
We'll stop. That's a directory. We are mostly only paying attention to the webmaster's experience. Time pending, I might look into another person, but the webmaster's experience is the one that I read and really paid attention to. Everything else is sort of ancillary and redundant.
Well, I'm already excited by the phrase "the webmaster," so let's go.
Yeah, wow, I don't think about that, but that's not a thing we say anymore, is it?
Nope.
Oh, hot shit. Okay. This all happened a while ago. Checking old journal dates, it was 2002. I was fucking stupid then, as you will see. I should have seen obvious signs and didn't. People have noted that I was stupid. They are smart, and they are right.
It's good to see growth.
Yeah. The reason this is up here is so people will read it and not be as stupid as I was. Now, I am reading this in the first person. It is written in the first person, but this did not happen to me. I would be a more broken individual if this shit had happened to me.
The following dramatic reading does not reflect the life or experiences of either Eric J. Chucci or the boy or any other member of the Two Nerds podcast.
Again, for clarification, what I did was not smart. People have been saying how it takes strength to go through this shit. No, it takes sheer unbridled idiocy. Just because it was stupid, though, doesn't mean it couldn't happen again to someone who is just as dumb. This story isn't for people who can identify the stupidity immediately. It's for those of you who have live journals named things like I Wish I Was Anime and spend time role-playing online. For people who have live journals in the year 2020, also known as hipsters.
I mean, also, I guess... this probably isn't for me. Should I go? Or...
Oh, it's for you.
Oh!
Anyway. This first entry here is dated August 23rd, 2008. Oh, no, that's an update. Excuse me. I apologize. We're going to skip past that part. I was inspired by reading someone else's account of internet crazies gone bad. Now, this has been in my head for a long time. There's a group of very dangerous individuals out there, and I really would like to detail what they did to me and mine. I want to warn people away from them. I want you to read my mistakes and watch out. These people are dangerous. This is not a joke. This is my experience with them.
I'm going to make jokes about it, though, just so we're...
we're going to joke about it because... Oh, boy. If others involved have stories or commentary, just send them to me. I'll add them in. I have one specific friend, and he may find this very hard to read. But if it makes you feel upset or sick, man, don't force yourself to read it. So... Most people watching the journal now probably don't know this, but back in the day, I ran a pretty popular website devoted to the characters Cloud and the very minor character Zack from Final Fantasy VII. Those of you, and I said we might have spoilers, bam, right there. Big old fucking spoilers, all right? If you've been holding out, if you care, that was your warning. We're going to keep talking now. Cloud is the main character of Final Fantasy VII. I think most people who are aware of video games know that. You've played Final Fantasy VII, although it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, and I don't remember much of it, but I know who Zack is.
You know who Zack is, but we have an audience as well. They should probably know who Zack is. Zack is Cloud in terms of personality and most of the memories and fighting skill. I don't remember exactly the process, but basically everything about who Zack was got imprinted onto Cloud, and Cloud was like, yeah, I probably did all that stuff.
But he did not do all that stuff.
No, Cloud is a goober. So there's some context. Back to the description here. It was really the only comprehensive site out there about the two, which is why it got such notice. I was used to receiving fan mail or other people's fan art, which I'd put up on the website. I actually haven't had anywhere near that kind of fame since then, and believe you me, I don't miss it. But anyway, I had my AIM up. AOL Instant Messenger. Only 90 kids. 90 kids? Only 90 kids? No.
We have murdered the rest. If you hear this and you're one of the 90, congratulations. We do know where you live. Don't tell anyone else. They'll take your spot. Continue. If
you think you're 91, why don't you just let us know in the comments section? That'll be fine. I had my AOL Instant Messenger up on the website because I was new to interweb famedom and wanted people to come talk to me about the site. Feedback was awesome in my eyes. I met a lot of cool people this way. I was always looking to promote the site, so when I got an instant message from some stranger offering a link exchange, I was like, oh boy. I was expecting a little podunk GeoCities page. God, GeoCities. This is a fucking time capsule, too. But then they told me they ran the domain hojo.org. I'd never been there before, but I ran a quick check. It looked mostly personal, with a little bit of a shrine to the character Professor Hojo from the same game. Hojo was the guy who did the things to Cloud and Zack.
Of course.
I was like, oh, that's cool. Sure, we can link exchange. So link exchanging back in day was kind of like an old-timey version of sub for sub. It was like a crossover episode, but with URLs. You know, most of you out there are old enough to know what's going on, but...
Just in case you're not, link exchange, as I understand it, although this really wasn't my area of the internet back then, I was elsewhere, was I'm going to put a link to your website on mine, you put a link to my website on yours.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. The person introduced themselves to me as Hojo, and pretty quickly started calling me Zack. I was okay with that, because Zack was, and still is, my favorite character in the game. For a while, it was mostly normal. This Hojo person seemed to be just another normal webmaster. There's that phrase again. All that means is you own a website. That's all. We didn't have a whole ton in common, so we didn't talk that often. So one day, I just got done putting up some art. It was of a villain/monster Genova as a dog creature. I gave it a little mini story under the image to be creative, something about cold water and being strangled by tentacles. I don't even really remember now. But Hojo IMs me and tells me that it was really well written. I'm flattered, so I thank them. Then it starts getting weird. I'll try to remember how it went, but it's been 4 years. It was really realistic, they say. Is that a memory? Understandably, I'm like, what? Is that one of your memories? I was unfamiliar with the concept being put to me at the time.
I'm going to stop you right there.
All right.
We're just gonna take a little bit of a pause here. Tentatively, I'm gonna label this one a red flag. I'm gonna say that I think what's about to happen, not a good thing. I know that you kept telling us a nice, fun story full of laughs, but I don't think so. Somehow, I think maybe things are about to go sideways.
I never told you such lies. How dare you paint me so awful? I continue on. I was unfamiliar with the concept being put to me at the time, being still pretty internet virginal. I said, no, I just made it up. They seemed disappointed, and I didn't understand why. We didn't talk for a few days. Then an IM comes at me where they say, my wife would like to talk to you. Oh, how cute, I'm thinking. It's this married couple who runs a Hojo shrine. Sure, I'll talk to your wife. Wives are nice people. Brr, idiot alert. That's not my commentary. That's the author's commentary. Now, realize during this time I was a college freshman. For those of you who have no bearing on that, like our Ukrainian listeners,
Yeah.
I was about the age of 19. Maybe even 18.
18 or 19, I believe, is because that's the school year in America for our non-American listeners.
Why gray rats, not gray rat, gray worms, American accent there? Well,
because it's the best one.
Fair enough. Like most college freshmen, I was at the height of my idiocy. Friends will remember I wasn't quite smart about drinking, to be very kind to myself, and so I hate to say it, but my memory of this time is spotty. I'm going to remember what of the build-up I can. The actual events are clear as crystal. This shit don't leave you. The wife, whose name is Jen, begins pressuring me about magic. Now, I was a pagan for a brief stint in high school, but like most kids, I grew out of it, and what she was telling me was long since bogus in my mind, but I put up with it, okay? She kept saying how she was a sorceress and stuff, half the time because she insisted I call her Genova, again, this is a character from Final Fantasy VII, and would emote poking me with tentacles and stuff. I figured she was only role-playing. I was like, okay, that's cool. It's the internet. I have some friends who are furries, and they do similar stuff, talking about their tails or whatever. I can deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, someone who's pretending to be a wolf person, someone who's pretending to be an evil god, those are the same. Those are morally and ethically equivalent actions that equally should concern you.
Well, the fucking funny thing here is, back in day when this happened, that was pretty normal. Like,
I know that's not the point I'm making.
It's pretty normal. I did. Me personally, white here. I did a lot of character role playing. Not probably not in any of the senses you're thinking, listener. It was just
whatever you're thinking is very different. It was different than whatever you're thinking.
Well, okay, so they're probably assuming either role playing Dungeons and Dragons style or role playing sexy style, and it wasn't either of those things. We just sort of bounced characters off of one another and just sort of did stuff in character, but the characters were not us. I think that's the big difference to this shit.
So just straight playing pretend.
Yeah, basically. But it was for it was sort of like a writing exercise. Not unlike e-fetting, really.
Yeah.
There was no illusion that I thought I was whatever character I was projecting.
It's the non-crazy version of this.
Sure. I'm just saying, I can see why.
You can see why in the shoes of the person whose life you're narrating
in 2002.
You would have seen this and gone, that's not something I should immediately distance myself from.
Right, the world's fucking different now.
Fair enough.
Then came a good old bombshell. I was asked if I had any memories of past lives. I do believe in past lives. I think it's a pretty valid cycle given how many cultures believe in it. So I told her no, I didn't, but I did believe in it. I should never have ever said that. It was like inviting a vampire into my house. Jen's attack was swift and sure. She began in a flurry explaining things to me, how there are alternate universes. Do you grant me that? Sure, there could be. And in those universes, maybe, just maybe, video games actually happened.
Okay, so I have two reactions here. Mm-hmm. Reaction number one. Reaction the first. We're going to skip past for a second. Reaction the second. I mean, theoretically speaking, that's not impossible.
Sure.
Presuming multiverse theory is true, and there is a universe where every possible permutation of reality existed, and even universes where different laws of physics hold sway, that is entirely possible. Reaction the first... that is a sentence that doesn't lead anywhere you want to go.
Man, even I had some people come up to me, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but like they started telling me a bunch of shit about how they practiced magic and they did this and that. And you know, I was young. I was maybe around the same age or maybe a little younger. But I was also smart enough to know the difference between, you know, what most Wiccans and similar faiths use to practice magic and the plot of Charmed, which this lady was trying to sell me as a bill of goods. But even then, like, we're talking about a similar time period, so my reaction was mostly just, go on, this is entertaining. Back to the story. I thought it could be plausible, because I like imagining that anything's possible. Through all of this and all this flurry, she tells me that she thinks in a past life, I was Zack from Final Fantasy VII. Think about it, she said. You're both country grown. You both have that instinct of dragging off friends who could be left behind. You'd take a bullet for someone, right? You say you don't believe in magic or any of that, and he wanted to be a mercenary. For all of his 5 or 6 lines, you have a similar speech pattern. You even live in a basement like he was locked in one, and you hate it.
And you both have eyes and hair. You both got that. And I'm pretty sure you both have 2 legs and 2 arms. And you wear clothes. It's completely irrefutable. Clothes.
Well, I mean, you know, when you have so little to go on for the character.
This is the worst cold reading I've ever secondhand read. I'm hearing a name. Does it begin with Q? Okay, W, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, D, D. Yes, I'm hearing a D. Come on, man. Have your shit a little tighter than that.
Addle your brain with freshman idiocy and vodka, and this will suddenly make sense. Sure, I'm not him now, I said, but it was possible. You were our Zack, she says. By our, I later found out she meant a large group of people whom had been similarly led to the conclusion that they had maybe been video game characters at some point in time.
Our Colt.
There was an heiress, a Cid. My then significant other became Red 13, which is a little lion dog man.
Rip for that person.
Etc., etc.
What a bad card to pull in the we're all gonna pretend to be reincarnated video game people. You end up with a Red 13. Also, it implies some things about Zack and Red 13's relationship I don't feel like the game implied at any point.
You know, I mean, at least Red 13 was a pretty decent character. Like, they lived with an overweight, dislikable man they called Gast. For those unfamiliar, these are all characters in the game. Which I don't know why they would call it an overweight, dislikable. Oh, because they're Hojo.
Also, just so we're clear, because they're fucking crazy.
I'm just trying to like keep the logical through line, and maybe that's my error here.
I feel like it is. I feel like that's probably not a great call.
Gast was a pretty decent dude in the video game. I continue. Some, like myself and Sid, who I still call Sid, had one foot in reality despite it all. I was willing to bite and say maybe at some point I was this character, but I was also not about to model my life after a video game. And they seemed to just want a new friend and some online roleplay, and I was pretty cool with that. For the most part, we didn't touch on the past life thing at all, actually. Jen would sometimes have chats with other people who she was friends with, and we'd all talk, or we'd discuss side editions or just little things. All in all, I was fine with them. They were a little flakier than my preferred loaf of bread, but I could live with that. They always called me by my screen name, which confused me. Yasha was the screen name, and it made the author cringe because they were afraid of people even 4 years ago. They were afraid that they would think they were an Inuyasha fan. I tried mentioning this once or twice, but it didn't really get anywhere. The first time they asked me to visit them, I think, was around Christmas.
Also, I just also want to make an aside. This dude is like, yeah, sure, I could totally be reincarnated video game character. Oh, but you know who's cringy? People who watch the very popular anime Inuyasha.
Which is very good, and I enjoy it.
Much better than, don't get me wrong, I went through a period of my life where I was like, no, that's cringe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then, on looking back, no, I watched it as a kid. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it's a perfectly bog standard anime.
Yeah, it's a good shonen shit, you know.
You're throwing stones in a glass coffin.
Well, I mean, it's that I don't know if we're getting to the Vincent thing. We don't, we have a similar thing in Dungeons & Dragons where people really get frustrated with a lot of the internal consistencies when, magic. Mm-hmm. So I can get it. Like, that's a reaction I can get from people. Like, and even in a non-making fun of it version, when you're watching a movie and you see something that that's not the way that works, sometimes it sticks in your craw.
You get that a lot with people who know what they're doing about stuff. Yeah. Doctors can't watch medical shows. Cops can't watch cop shows. Shit like that.
Right.
Zach can't watch Inuyasha. That's not what combat with a big sword looks like. I'm sorry.
Anyway. So the author visits them around Christmas. It would cost me $300 to go by bus from my podunk school to their apartment in State College. I'm gathering that's the name of a town in Pennsylvania. I don't feel like Googling it.
I choose to believe it is just their apartment in State College.
Yeah, this is all written in lowercase, so we have really no way of telling.
Yeah, this motherfucker's never met a capital letter in his whole life.
Well, you know what? Writing all this shit down in the fucking, smoking 8 cigarettes while doing so frenzy it must have been. I can't blame them. They assured me that they would pay to feed me. I would just visit for a weekend to meet some people and hang out. At the bus stop, Hojo met me in a lab coat.
I'm going to get back on the bus. It's nice to see you. Put my hat back on. I walk back onto the bus. I buy a return ticket. I'm done here. I think we're good.
Here, the author notes that Hojo is a lady. In the video game, Hojo is not a lady. Just for the sake of consistency and clarification.
I did start reading this bit so I could get an idea of what actually... he's really cleaning this up for y'all. So we're just going to move right along.
Yeah, it's a lot of back and forth. When we arrived at the apartment, Jen, who, again, insisted I call her Genova and would often refer to herself as Jenny Nova, which, if that's not some fucking early 2000s up my own ass fucking the seat covers I'm talking about bullshit.
I can't hate on it. That's actually clever.
It was of the time, that feels like a fucking, that rabbit that said mean things.
Jesus fuck! Are you talking about Foamy the squirrel?
No. The rabbit that was on all the Hot Topic merch.
I have no idea what you're talking about then. Moving along.
I'm not editing this, so y'all can just Google Hot Topic rabbit said mean things and it'll pop up. Anyway, she came storming up to Hojo and I, screaming in Hojo's face. I have no idea what it was about. She was wearing a purple skirt that she had pulled up around her breasts. It looked like she'd just gotten out of bed, and I was, to say the very least, intimidated. About 3 seconds later, she whirled around in a quick change. Suddenly the nicest person ever. Whatever she was mad about was out the window.
No notes. Go on.
No notes.
I'll stop you when I hear something.
Okay. It was the weekend before Christmas, and all through the apartment was a pretty big mess. I brought my rat with me because I planned to go from State College, Pennsylvania, straight home to Brooklyn. I had also brought Christmas gifts. Jen had told me earlier she was a great artist, so I dropped about $30 on real high-quality watercolors for her. The apartment was cluttered, and there were wet papers and stuff everywhere. Oh, I didn't say wet. I just added that in. I'm going to assume they were wet. The floor was covered in glitter, but I figured they were just kind of goofy college students. College students make a mess. When Jen showed me her art, though, I realized she would have no idea how to use the watercolors I'd bought her. They were, at best, a brush being slopped around a page.
This is a pretty good, solid life tip. If you're talking to someone, they go, "I'm a great artist," they're a shit artist. That's...
You know what? Yeah, basically every artist I've met, fucking is drawing fucking masterpieces.
This is the worst thing that's ever happened. I am a human pile of garbage.
I trick people into paying me for my crap.
Self-confidence in the creative field of putting images onto Surface, as I understand it, is a huge marker of just straight-up Dunning-Kruger syndrome. That is someone who is a bad artist who does not know it.
A bad person who does not know things is kind of the thrust of this. But anyway, we will continue. Nervously, when I gave over the gift, I asked her if she knew how to use them. Of course. Okay, I said. Maybe she just hasn't had the good tools, but she does know how to use them. She was very happy, though, and that's what mattered. Never mind that the next time I visited, the watercolors were entirely used up. The concept of mixed pigment and water was not known to Jen. She thought you used them like acrylics because of the texture of the pigment. That hurts my soul. I was taken around town for the weekend and introduced to quite a few random people, most of which now I can't even really remember faces or names. One, in all likelihood, was a friend of mine that I still know today. It was snowing, I remember, very cold. I'm not good at being introduced, so for the most part, I try to keep away from stuff going on. I do remember in the mall, Jen had what would be the first of several incidents where I felt frightened of her. The dyslexic guy is reading the story is what we're doing here.
Also, very important difference, so I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah, she stormed to the side of the mall inside and began sulking. The reason for this was because they didn't have enough money to buy something. I don't even remember what it was, but she wanted it and they couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it either, so I was stuck in the middle of all of this. I tried to stay out of it. Fortunately, it seemed to have passed when we got back to the apartment. We had a good time, piling up stuffed ladybugs and laughing at the menage bug? Oh, like menage a trois. About this time, I started to realize, though, that Jen wasn't role-playing when she talked about her children and other selves. Jen is what the internet calls a soul bonder, or in other words...
That is not what the internet calls those anymore. Go ahead.
Or in other words, a batshit loony.
That's what the internet calls those.
She believes she has a lot of people living in her head talking, and when she wants to take on a personality that best fits a situation for her personal gain, she acts one out. For example, if she wanted to get sympathy, she would raise the pitch of her voice and pretend to be an innocent child.
Oh, okay. So soul bonder is... the colloquial term for manipulative dickhead.
Basically. Now, here's where we slide in with this text does not necessarily represent the views of the Two Nerds podcast. Not that I'm trying to curry that soul bonder favor there.
Hey, we got any soul bonders? Leave a like. Put your alters or whatever you call them in the comments. Have each of them leave a separate comment if possible. And I don't believe you. You're crazy. There we go. Let's move on.
I think for most people I've met, seen. I shouldn't say met. That's not accurate. Who are into that kind of shit. It's just like a creative hobby, Especially the ones who are adults now.
Realistically speaking, it's just something teenagers and 20-somethings do because you don't have a personality when you're 20. You don't have an identity. You have a series of things that you like, and that's your identity. You're not a fully formed person yet. This is you doing your best. Yeah. I ultimately... Look, if this was just a story of some weird people this guy met one time, I would not be being nearly as harsh to these people. The problem is, I know they are money-draining vampire people, so they do not get my sympathy.
No. I don't, Look, I don't really necessarily want to hang out with somebody who soul bonds. That's a little much for my palate. I'm a little more laid back, and I don't have the patience to keep up with that shit.
Prefacing that so long as you're willing and comfortable to understand that I will not be giving your wacky Looney Tunes bullshit any rope, yeah, we can hang out, sure.
It's basically the old adage of do whatever the hell you want, just so long as it doesn't hurt anybody else.
In this case, not the case.
And also I did want to mention that, this and a lot of other stuff we will cover later in this actual mental disorders.
Oh, yeah, side note. Mental health is very important. By all means, take care of your mental health. If you have an actual issue, please seek whatever assistance is necessary. These are fucking scam artist con people, so I'm going to be treating them with all of the dignity and self and respect that implies.
Yeah, basically.
Please note, any and all jokes at their expense. I do not mean to be lobbing across the bow at people who are actually suffering. It's just, I really don't like people who take advantage of people who have given their trust for the purposes of bilking them, on account of that being an asshole thing to do.
I don't disagree with that at all, especially when you're using something that could garner so much sympathy, like
I have a genuine mental problem.
Yeah.
Please give me sympathy points. And also, your bank account details.
Back to the story. Now, I was a dumb college freshman, but I wasn't brain damaged much yet. I knew it was just Jen pretending. I'd already experienced the actor acting for self-gain with a high school drama friendship. So I just humored her when she did this, but I wasn't about to treat her any different. I'm really happy for our hero here.
I don't trust the long-term nature of that particular arrangement.
At least we're off to a good start.
I don't have faith. I was gonna say I have faith. I don't have faith. I think he's definitely gonna change positions on this. Go ahead.
About this time, I got into a fight with my mother, who expected some usual unreasonable nonsense from me. My mother's the only person who can make me cry, and because my view on crying is, if no one around is to care, why bother doing it? I let myself cry there. Jen and Hojo suggested I stay longer and began talking very, very drastic measures, that I needed to get away from my home, that I could abandon my family, here's the number of a youth support group, etc. I honestly was frightened by this. My family is certainly high on my list of things I get stressed to all kingdom come about, but I didn't want to cut off all means to them ever. I managed to work it out so that I would go home 2 days later as sort of a take that to the family. Jen told her mother... Hold on. Jen told me that her mother was the same way. That was written terribly. And that Hojo had to go all the way to California to rescue her. Jen's mom was apparently a horrible, abusive person who hated her daughter for being a lesbian. Her father was absent or divorced or something. It was never really clear. She kept saying how even though her grandmother was rich, she didn't love her. She had stories about her abusive friend who trained her to be a Sephiroth or something. Sephiroth is another character from Final Fantasy VII.
Man, you keep... This is a roller coaster. Every time I think I'm in a groove, someone's getting trained to be a fucking Sephiroth, and I am just left. I'm left behind on the story we were on a second ago. It's like, oh yeah, no, that can happen. You know, people get parents can get real shitty about stuff like that. Hold on. I feel like I skipped a chapter. What's going on?
I was sympathetic. Always having been the one to believe that, don't complain because other people have it worse than you shtick. So a few days later, we went to the bus stop to catch my bus to Brooklyn. I was crazy beforehand because my rat was still in her travel cage after about 4 days, and I had no money, and so on and so on. I wanted to get to the stop early so I wouldn't miss the bus. Jen assured me that she knew what time the bus was because it was her computer. I couldn't check for myself. When we got to the bus station, they told me my bus had left an hour ago.
Hey, quick question. This was what year?
I believe 2002. Let me double check.
2002. Okay, so just to be sure, biometric locks for computers did not exist in 2002, as far as I'm aware.
There are passwords. Not everybody's a good password cracker. Also, if you hear a terrifying growling noise in the background, that's still the cat.
I wanted to be sure because what was preventing this man from checking?
Probably just a password, like I said.
But
and the owner of the computer going, now.
Okay, so yes, I just wanted to be sure that it was, indeed, the dickheads. Move on.
I was delayed by 1 day by what Jen swore was an honest mistake. I was willing to believe it. I went home. Overall, the first visit was not so bad. I can kind of sympathize. I know the kind of people I tried to become friends with in my late teens, early 20s. Adult people doing cool stuff. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I visited them frequently because they always seemed to want me to meet someone. I met up with their heiress, who was a cool, nerdy college girl with a big brain. She liked old RPGs and had been to Japan as well and was going to study in Europe. And we were pretty good friends. But Jen repeatedly kept talking about how she was going to put aphrodisiacs in our food because Zach, myself, and Eris, her, needed to sleep together because they did in the game. Well, not even actually necessarily. Depends on the translation you look at. This goes into a bunch of geek shit that I give a shit about. But
and I mean, the focus here I feel like should be that Hojo Cosby is making her play here, and
so this is kind of a callback to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Fucking elephant in the room. This person is, quote unquote, jokingly talking about putting aphrodisiacs in their food to make them fuck, and I'm just sitting here going, well, that's not canonical.
Yeah, I'm more focused on the sexual pet predator.
Well, I mean, I read the story years ago. I watched a video on it again recently when I was looking up information about it, and I was reading it again earlier.
This is hitting me
this
fresh.
Is new.
This is hitting me. I'm telling you what's sticking out to me.
Because neither her nor I were on the train to Hot Dog Land, we just played video games together instead. Jen was very disappointed and immediately assumed the personality of Eris's imaginary boyfriend, lowering her voice and commanding things of her. I myself have always been squicked by personal displays of affection. There's an old word I haven't heard in a while. It comes part and parcel with being asexual, but I had to lie on my guest futon. Good old dyslexia.
Guest Fulton. Oh, yeah, we have a guest Fulton. Now, we also have, our Fulton, but the guest Fulton's a little nicer. We only bring it out when we have people around we like.
I was laying on the guest futon while Jen and Eris snuggled, making loud kissing noises and giggling with each other. I could not wrap my head around how this girl, who claimed to be straight, could not see that she was just lying with another woman and making out. I turned my back to him at this point because I was so wigged out. I heard kissing noises, but I can't confirm they were actually making out. It may have just been Jen kissing her hand or something, but either way, it really bugged me. I turned my back to them and tried to sleep. The next day, Jen... computer got away from me. Jen decided to show me magic battles. These are basically like LARP fights. She would swing around a stick or a sword to music and feign injury when Hojo, quote-unquote, threw stuff at her, making some goofy hand movements. Hojo would do the same.
Too magic.
Yeah, Hojo would do the same when Jen would thrust her staff forward or something. They tried to get me to do it, but I can't act. I can't pretend I'm doing magic because I'm not that out of it. Eventually, Jen dragged me onto my feet, and it was something like karaoke. I kept laughing at both myself and the fact that I could do some sort of limp wrist movement, and Jen would throw herself on the floor panting. Afterward, they kept telling me, "See, Zach, you can use magic!" And I just kept laughing. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't out of it. I just was really ready to keep humoring them, because it wasn't hurting anybody.
I kind of want to put myself into the Hojo Squad's shoes here. So you've brought in a new mark, right? Mm-hmm. You brought in a new mark, and they seem reasonably gullible enough that you can probably hook them. But you're in this point, and you're doing your big magic act. You're doing your big, all right, so I wait for him to do the wrist thing, and I fall down, and this is, I'll convince him he has magic, and I get all the money. And it's not working. It's visibly not working. You got to start getting tense, right? You got to start being like, all right, I got to step it up. He's not on the line yet. I gotta fucking really turn the nozzle up. What I'm saying is, I think things will calm down from here, and this will be a reasonable story.
This is the apex?
Yeah. Oh, this is high as it gets.
Not even halfway through the website?
High as it gets.
Okay.
I'm convinced. Go ahead.
Oh, and I do need to say, I did stuff like this when I was, 15, 16. We try to pretend we stop playing pretend after a certain point, but
I play D&D.
Don't act like you don't go into the kitchen and sometimes do karate because ninjas are attacking you because you're fucking bored and no one's watching.
You live with me. People watching doesn't stop me from fighting the ninjas.
I meant the general you, but fair enough. So I can kind of get that, but 18, 19... I would have been Zach in this situation. I would have been this is a weird game and I don't want to play it.
And if I thought these people were just having a good time playing a pretend sword fight, which is a good time to do with your buddies, even now, that'd be fine. I know that's not the case. Because if it was the case, you wouldn't be telling me this story.
Sure as hell wouldn't be recording it. There are a lot of visits like this. Jen did a lot of things that I can't think of in chronological order. When she was stressed about something, she would grow faint in town. Because I didn't know her very well, I thought maybe she was anemic, and I would try to hurry up to help her. Also, I had told her when she first asked me to visit that I can't eat meat. I cannot eat red meat specifically. I was raised vegetarian, so my body never got used to digesting it. Red meat makes me sick. By no choice of my own. But every night, Jen would cook red meat, and I would eat it because that's all there was, and I would get sick. Increasingly during my visits, each of which was around a $300 bus ride, Jen would ask me for money to go food shopping or toy shopping or whatever. I would give it over because I always feel like the guest ought to bring some stuff to their host as a thank you. I don't feel that way, but I recognize a lot of people in the world do.
Yeah, that's just a cultural difference. It is the continued dickishly making food that is intentionally making the other person sick and putting upon them a $300 ticket to come see you. It makes these people really stand out as good stand-up individuals.
Yeah. When my friends have their families pay for me at dinner, I always felt slightly guilty, so I was happy to give over cash every time. Around spring, we were still fairly good friends, despite the things Jen did that disturbed me. At one point, she and Hojo had locked me into a soundproof glass chamber in the basement of a school building because they wanted to see me remembering being Zach.
This is the stepping up that I was talking about. They have exceeded to holding someone against their will, so that should be fun.
I panicked, but not because I fucking thought I was in a video game mansion. As after the banging the door and jerking the handle and freaking out, I was finally let out, and I was shaking. I was not pleased with them for the rest of that day.
That's just being a nerdy 19-year-old who has no fucking spine.
And no friends, and no frame of reference. Like, I remember points in my life where I would have still stuck to it.
Look, I never got in deep with scary con man LARPers, but I have definitely in my younger years, I definitely took an amount of bullying from people I no longer hang out with that would result in either me leaving or physical violence now.
So anyway, in spring, Hojo IM'd me, knowing a few of my musical tastes. She mentioned there was a free music show in town, and Jimmy Eat World was playing. A friend of mine, Czar, had gotten hooked on them from her brother, and we were both pretty into them at the time, so we were like, hell yeah, that's worth it, and we set off down there. When Czar arrived, the first thing Jen did was assign her a role. She was Vincent Valentine, another character from Final Fantasy VII, because she had long hair. Vincent is a vampire. He is also like a shape-shifting mutant. I mean, you could go with he's a goth. What we've chosen today, long hair.
You know what? She's still a winner compared to Red 13.
Yeah,
Vincent's cool. He's got a cool robot claw arm. It's gold.
His gun.
He's got gun. Good. Look, compared to Red 13, Vincent's winning.
Look, hey,
no room to complain.
I wouldn't be upset about it. I'm just saying.
I mean, I would.
You've got long hair.
You wish they had gone with a deeper, more lore-friendly explanation for their obvious grift.
It's kind of like you're saying earlier. It's like, if you're gonna scam them, try.
Yeah, have your shit a little tighter than that. Come on.
I guess maybe they don't have to. So.
I mean, there's only so many Final Fantasy VII characters, my dude.
I suppose. That was okay with her. She likes Vincent as a character. He's one of her favorites. Jen immediately wanted to try a past life regression with us for our video game past lives.
Of course.
We were taking into their bedroom, which smelled like you would expect it would, and made to lie on the floor. Jen put on loop an MP3 of Vincent's theme song from Final Fantasy VII, The Nightmare is Just Beginning, which I now realize is hilariously appropriate. Now, Czar and I cannot do anything seriously when we're put together, even as dumb freshmen. To Jen's hardcore frustration, even though Czar and I both tried to be serious and act our parts, we wound up joking and laughing at each other. In frustration, Jen declared we were too silly to do this tonight, and we would do it some other time.
This is just, it's unacceptably silly. This is a serious matter. This is, you guys can't be fucking around with this. This is very serious. You are Vincent from Final Fantasy VII!
Zara the whole time was sneezing really bad. I jokingly suggested she was allergic to magic. In actuality, it was probably the dust and glitter everywhere. Jen and Hojo took this very seriously. Of course, allergic to magic. We can fix that. There was a lot of staff shaking and waving over Zar, and gibberish chanted in the ancient Cetra language, or Elvish, which is not a race in Final Fantasy VII. When it was all done...
Are you... again, these guys, are you telling me they're not lore-friendly?
That's the thing that frustrates me the most.
You would think, for being Professor Hojo, you would be more learned in the genre, in the setting.
So, okay, alright. You know, fucking soul bonding and what the fuck is the actual term for these people now?
Otherkin?
Yeah, that shit. If you're gonna do that, you'd think, you know, you would do it. Man, if I decided I wanted to be an otherkin of Alistair from Dragon Age, I'm not gonna be talking about my dwarf mom, okay? Because she doesn't fucking exist.
Guys, the fucking look on his face.
I just can't imagine being like, this is my life, you know? This I am fucking bound with Mega Man, who's a steampunk machine. Like, how do you...
Crazy.
Yeah, okay.
Con artist.
You know... I think... You know, I'll save this summation for the end. I've met these kind of people. In some ways, I was these kind of people. Obviously, I was never a con artist, but taken to flights of fancy. So, like, I have to assume that part of this is them working themselves.
Well, I mean, like, you gotta assume, right?
Right.
Nobody who's bringing all of the Happy Meal to the table is choosing this for their con.
Yeah, there's so many better cons.
Way easier cons. So if this is your thing, if this is how you want to get money, that's because it means something to you, and that's a lot scarier.
Anyway, after all the chanting
just pretend to be Jesus. Everybody just pretends to be Jesus. You're going way too far.
When all the chanting and staff waving was done, Zar continued to sneeze. Oh well. Since Zar and I are both artists, Jen wanted us to draw her a doujinshi.
Okay, alright, so we have to make a call as the Two Nerds podcast at this point. Do we intend to explain what that is?
It's manga porn. It's the simplest version.
Good enough. Moving right along.
She had shown us some that someone else had drawn, but Jen wanted the ones we were going to draw to be serious and involve tentacle rape.
I'm out. I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. I got stuff I gotta do. I'm gonna head out.
Yeah?
Continue.
You think I'm locked in here with you?
Fuck.
You think you hold the keys?
Uh-oh.
Anyway, as I mentioned, Zara and I together pretty much diffused any seriousness that could exist. What Jen wound up with, and once again was not happy with, was a comic that involved marshmallow peeps over people's genitals, complete lack of genitals, commentary on the lack of genitals, pictures of upside-down stick houses with captions like Ibsen's summer home, and complete divergence into a stupid plot and chit-chat between characters. Oops. Zara and I went to the concert alone because Jen and Hojo don't like music or crowds. See, that's a fucking thing. If nothing else was a warning sign, motherfucker doesn't like music, I'm out. How do you... No.
Just the concept of rhythmic noise, I decline. I'm out. I don't like rhythm or melody or pleasant sounds. All of those things are not for my taste. I will have screeching, discordant noise or nothing.
It's silence, pure, unfiltered silence. You Soul Bond, you fucking Final Fantasy.
You were fine with the monetary exploitation and the thinking you were a fictional character or a reincarnation of same. You were fine with the attempted Cosbying of two unrelated people. But you draw the line at not liking them jamming tunes.
Like, me personally, in that situation, if we hit that wall, that would be my wake up. That would be me going, oh, I gotta go.
That's your
my
ripcord moment.
Yeah, that's my ripcord. We had tons of fun, but the ground was horribly muddy. Our pants were caked in it from doing stupid, goofy shit while the music played. And we eventually walked home. When we walked in the door, Jen was furious. She made us stand in the bathtub and clean ourselves. These are probably the best memories I have of meeting these guys, the ones where Czar and I together diffused their loonydom. The next day, we went to a mall where Jen kept wanting things. Between that...
There's like a fun meet-cute romance story in here, like waiting to break free. I don't like that look. I don't like that face. That's a bad face.
It's my face. Between that and dinner, they successfully managed to suck $100 from Czar's ATM card without either of us really noticing. Little things add up a lot. Also, we were late to the bus again and thus missed a day of school because of it. Czar also remembers that during our visit we wanted to play with a Ouija board. Ever since I've been a kid, whenever I get near one, it starts goofing off and spelling stuff like breast or love you. I don't have to touch the thing. Maybe it's subconscious effect on people by proxy. Maybe it's something else. We've always dubbed this defect, fucking doesn't matter. It was just a harmless little inside Ouija board joke thing that kept happening when the author would play the game.
We should remember that the person writing this is also still fairly young and clearly pretty stupid.
It mentioned in the original text, I believe. Yes, the intro paragraph. Jen exclaimed that she knew this inside joke. And man, when someone is shoving the pointer around, you can feel it. She shoved the pointer all over the board, claiming it was the inside joke talking, even though it was saying serious and hokey crap that the inside joke would never say. And the inside joke was about going to sex and zooming towards someone off the board. One thing Jen did that really disturbed me was that she would lie to people, shop owners, people on the phone, about who or what she was in order to get things. I very clearly remember her putting on a lab coat and calling various medical supply companies in the yellow pages trying to get medical syringes.
No, okay, stop. Why did she put on the lab coat?
I know, right?
Was it to get into character? Was it like so that they could hear the lab coat? Is it like, you know how they say if you're working a job where you talk to people on the phones, you should smile because people can hear your smile. Can they hear the lab coat? Can you hear the lab coat? I need to know.
I guess it's dressed for the medical syringes you want.
Fuck. Yeah.
Thank God she never got them because she would already make us drink Mako, which is a sort of energy of magic in Final Fantasy VII. Here, it is green Gatorade.
Oh, Jesus. Every fucking 2 sentences. It's just some fresh flavor of crazy asshole bullshit.
My favorite part on this is like at the beginning when you were kind of shitting on the YouTube Reacts people who go 2 nanoseconds and then pause and have to take a minute.
Oh, no. That wasn't shitting. That was an assessment of the 2 kinds.
I see.
I know which one I am.
She would also dye our food green. She probably would have injected us with green water if she'd gotten the syringes. She kept claiming that she was a medical student and needed them for her research, but didn't have a prescription or permission from her professor because he was out of town. Thank God the companies weren't so dumb as to believe her. They pretty much gave her yeah, buy whatever crazy heroin addict treatment. She would also fib about being a student to get discounts or make friends. She was a medical student at CVS, whether the CVS employees believed her or not, I'll never know, because she went in a lab coat. At the Christian bookstore, she was adamant about the fact that angels had talked to her and she lived with them. So, of course, the bookstore would give her free books at a discount. This is some very bless your heart sort of reaction there. This is why...
That's... Alright, I'm gonna get this crazy fucker out my store.
That's the kind of person who'll set fire to a place.
So she's gonna get all the discounts she wants because I'm gonna have a store tomorrow.
This is why Jen's vision of religion is such a hodgepodge mix and match of whatever she felt suited the situation best. She pieces it together from movies, the internet, and a few free Christian books from the less flaky, but still pretty flaky, people about angels. Through it all, though, I have to say, none of it was really that bad. flaky, maybe annoying. I think he uses like flaky here to mean like.
Flaky, as I gather from this person's lexicon, kind of means afraid.
Yeah.
Not playing with a full deck, missing a few crayons from the box.
Like, it could be positively attributed to Luna Lovegood. Whereas for me, flaky... Kooky, sure. Whereas for me, flaky means like...
unreliable.
Yeah, cannot meet commitments.
I keep having to translate, because that's what that word means. That word means to me unreliable, not whimsical.
Maybe a little annoying, but she wasn't that bad. So I was ready to hit the go button when Jen and Hojo suggested I live with them over the summer. I could get a job in state college and just hang out there. It'd be cool, a whole bunch of nerds, and I'd help make rent. It was all about this because nothing drives me nuttier than being trapped in Brooklyn for months on end. I made the arrangements with my family and dragged my computer tower in my arms, God it hurt, through the New York subway and took a slightly cheaper, $100, bus ride from New York to State College. I think it was the first night. Jen wasn't there. Honestly, I was getting along better with Hojo, who... at this point, so I was really glad. We went with Trish and her to see episode 1. I don't know, Trish was not mentioned before, but whatever.
Look, at this point, there's so many goddamn characters and names and old and like past lives. Any new name, I just assume is I don't know, Hojo again. Let's move on.
Trish, I could already tell, was anti-Jen because Trish is smarter than little old me. I had an ultimatum from my mother: job in 3 days or come home. Realize how much hump I busted to find a job with no car and no phone number in 3 days. My dogs were dogged. Finally, I got one at a small supermarket. I asked the lady during the interview, because I was this naive to pay, if I would be enough to pay a third of rent and food because I was living with 2 other people, and I needed to do that. Jen's only job was a babysitter, which she did infrequently and best, as in when she felt like it, and
as in, yay, please don't leave this person around children.
Yeah. Hojo was a college student. The woman said no problem. It was cool. I had my job. I was happy. Then things started to go bad.
Well, yes, because now they've got you.
I can't even say what came first, chicken or egg, but let's just say that after 1 week I was getting sick of it. I was the workhorse. I guess because I was Zach, I was therefore the manly man, as opposed to Jen the Cetra queen or Hojo the frail scientist. Jen quit her babysitting job and refused to look for another one. I was the one who had to carry the groceries to and from the house, the one who made the money to feed everyone, the one who had to fix or move furniture when it needed to be fixed or moved.
So, Hojo, lady, Jen, slash, I forget which one she's supposed to be aside from...
Jen is Genova.
That's right, Jenny Nova, that's right.
Yes.
Also, lady. So this guy has just been, like, tricked into simping? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how scams work, yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Except, clearly, not a huge fan of, the sex.
Yeah.
So it's just more of a tricked into manservanthood?
Yeah, tricked into... Yeah, I mean, you're...
This guy doesn't have the glory of the simp.
No, this guy doesn't have the aspirational...
Homie doesn't even have bathwater, all right? That's all I'm saying.
You know what? That's entirely fair. This is... Oh, yeah, no, you're just... You're a slave now. That's going to be your life, and carry the groceries.
My computer could rarely get online because Jen was on almost 24/7. I'm sure that's a foreign concept to anybody who is younger than us listening, but that was a thing.
Yeah, there was... I can't even... There is too much. I will sum up. Internet used to be harder to get onto. Move on.
There was a noise. The rest of the time, she would watch me as I typed, so I could never make a journal entry that read something along the lines of, Jen is abusing me, help God, I'm tired, I want out of here. But I had to be tough and tough it out. That's my idiocy right there. In case you're noticing, I was starting to wise up. I'd stopped drinking so much, which contributed to this in large part. It made me much, much less tolerant of their BS. Jen was not supportive of me having a social life. When my phone ran out, I was not allowed to call home on my own. When I talked to people online, she would hang over my shoulder and ask who they were. Then she would write down the screen name and go talk to them on her computer later. This is how she got a hold of a couple of other people, and God knows how many others. The only place I was really safe was Furcadia.
We were shitting on the furries before. No. Come ye and bask in the safe harbor of the Furcadia.
You ask any independent artist. Furries are good people with a lot of money. That was a safe place because she didn't like how the client worked, so she didn't try to get on there. I don't really play the game for the graphical interface. I play it because it's never failed in keeping me sane. Jen would and did keep very strict track of my activities. If I was going out, I had to tell her where. I did not have a house key, so I had to make sure they were home or I'd be locked out. I was a few times anyway, because Jen would go to sleep and I would stand at the door banging and not be able to get in. I had a few fun moments like dumpster diving, but I had to keep all these secret and to myself or I'd get in trouble. And then there was the fighting. Not the silly magic fighting I talked about earlier, but real fighting. Screaming fights, slapping, punching. The sound of flesh beating flesh is not one you can miss. When I was 10, my parents went through a very rough divorce. I know these sounds, and they were bringing up really bad memories and bad feelings. And the apartment was small, so there was no way to not to hear them. Hearing them, one of them wince or whimper, and then the beating, and immediately after, the noisy sex. I'm not 100% sure, but I think somewhere this counts as some kind of emotional abuse. Like I said, I couldn't leave because I'd be locked out. The apartment was on the second floor, so I couldn't break in. I wasn't officially on the lease, so I couldn't ask the landlord to let me in, or I risked being thrown out. I couldn't fund my family because Jen and Hojo would listen like hawks and try to coach me on what to say and what to think. And I couldn't even break down and cry because the apartment was so small they'd know what it was and I'd have to make up some lame magical excuse so they wouldn't choke what little freedom I had. I was not getting sleep for work. Jen would wake me up at 3 a.m. to see the fairy rings or fight some magical disturbance or whatever the fuck. My job also began cutting my hours because I was expendable summer labor, so my paycheck dwindled.
This is pretty standard cult stuff. You deprive them of food, you deprive them of safety, you deprive them of sleep. Pretty simple stuff.
Isn't it just? This check was all the money that was coming into the apartment. At one point, and I feel horrible to say this, a friend of mine paid for an entire month's rent. Not just my third, the entire thing. I owe them my soul for that one. In a normal college setting, I could have easily saved the money to keep up with the rent. Easily, even with only my paycheck, but I also had to do the food shopping. If it was up to me, we would have had what most college kids have. Ramen, generic brand cereal, bread, water. But it was not up to me. Jen wanted steak, and not just any steak, $10 steak, and Gatorade, 2 kinds, fancy and special colored, and spices. All of this would last us one night of food, and my paycheck was gone. I couldn't even eat the food that was provided. The rest of the time they demanded I ask my job for day-olds from the bakery and day-old sushi. I swiped coupons from work and used them wherever I could. I couldn't afford lunch and there was no breakfast. If one of my supervisors caught me with the day-olds, I would be in trouble. The others seemed to take pity but didn't like that I was doing it. The day-olds I brought back, Jen complained she didn't like the flavor of. This was the only food coming into the house.
This story's getting depressing.
Yeah. My bank account was drained. I was drained. I brought home a girl I met on the street who'd just gotten out of prison. She was just a silly little acid burnout with a kitten. I was desperate for human contact. She was from Washington, D.C., and was on her way home, staying with a complete random stranger boy. She used the last of her money to call her mom to say she was okay. Jen did not like this girl. Jen wanted her to leave and was mad that I brought her home to hang out. The girl was oblivious, gloriously so, and didn't know. I wanted to stay with her and her kitten, and who was named Ulysses exploring the top of the world. But she was ordered to leave.
I like this person.
Yeah, this acid-tripping girl from D.C. who made her way to fucking Pennsylvania with a kitten.
Ulysses exploring the top of the world, no less. Also, I assume she'll be gone by the next sentence?
Yes, she's gone.
Okay, fuck. This is one bright spot in an otherwise spiraling funeral dirge of a story.
Sid occasionally would come over. You remember Sid was mentioned at the beginning of this. Sid is another Final Fantasy character and also a friend of this person's. When he did, I was glad, because it was someone else. But he was, and he still does have his dickish moments, a dick. Jen would make these be-all, end-all, and Renee would back her up, and Renee being Hojo, sorry. I began to think that he was like that all the time, and didn't want to hang out with them when he was gone. Once he came back, they had to restart the process of brainwashing me over and over again. And they did have me brainwashed. I was terrified and miserable, but I was brainwashed. I know this because Jen had a fight with Eris at one point. I don't even know what it was over. I think Eris woke up to what Jen was doing and wanted out of the situation. Jen was on about how she'd been betrayed, how they were so united. About this time, I began to read a few horror stories. Jen had made Eris sit in a bathtub full of ice cubes and read food coloring as part of her Cetra training. It's a wonder the poor girl didn't get hypothermia, but Jen was up in arms.
Yeah, again, pretty standard cult stuff.
Yeah. Apparently, Eris called one evening when Hojo and I were at the used bookstore, stealing books, and said she wanted to come home, wanted to come grab some of her things that she'd left at the apartment. Jen exploded. She called Hojo's cell phone in tears, screaming she was going to kill herself. I believed it. Hojo called Sid and demanded he go over. Hojo called Eris and screamed at her. I told her off too. We rented a taxi with money we didn't have and raced home. Jen, who had been screaming that she had slit her wrists, was in the middle of the floor. Sid was draping damp cloths on her wrists. I woke up for a second time and knew this was bullshit. I personally had a problem with self-injury, so I know very well the sight of a deep cut and the sight of a light cut. I know knife wounds. Jen had scratched herself. Horizontally on the wrists. Maybe it had been with a safety pin or a butter knife. It was not any kind of suicide attempt. At most, it would sting. But I was still mad at Eris because I was supposed to be. I wrote her nasty emails. I joined them in bashing her. I ignored her when she came to pick up her stuff, even though she obviously still wanted to be friends with me. I regret that now because we never reconciled. Maybe if I'd gotten a clue and tried to get out with her, things would have turned out different. These hissy fits of Jen's got more and more frequent, like the fighting. She never tried to slit her wrists again, though. Sometime around here, Jen wanted to move out of the apartment. The place was a pigsty. The reason was that Jen never cleaned. All the cleaning was always done by guests, who they had coming and going in intervals. I did the dishes pretty frequently, but the trash was almost never taken out. It got to the point where the apartment smelled like rotting flesh. Jen refused to believe it, that it was the trash, and that the trash needed to go out. She kept claiming some former owner must have done something. But it was a horrible mess. Their only solution as they saw it was to move out. So they got a different apartment from the landlady, a one-room gig. I did not like this at all. At least in the current apartment, I could stay in the living room while they had sex in the bedroom or beat each other in the bedroom. Now I would have nowhere to escape to. I started feeling desperate, trapped. With Jen over my shoulder whenever I wrote and checking my blog the next morning if she wasn't, I couldn't get anything out. I hadn't been drinking since I came there, but I was ready to start again. I could never talk to my friends, and when I could, I had to pretend everything was hunky-dory for when Jen talked to them. The few Furcadia people I knew were sympathetic, but there was nothing they could do to help. I couldn't go to Sid because what if he was on their side? What if he rejected me for being such an ass? I was starting to see Eris's point, and I was getting frantic. I started to sneak out and run down any empty parking lots at night to use the payphone and call my dad collect. He was the only one who knew what was happening, really, besides Czar, Vincent. Those two were briefed on the situation, and both of them were telling me it sounded bad, but because Jen would always be on the prowl and find me, I could never tell them quite how bad, just that I was stressed, I was upset, and I was sick of Jen being unable to go make money because she was pregnant with an astral baby or something. Moving day. God, this day's pinned in my mind. Supposedly Jen was going to help us move, and Hojo would come back to help too, so on and so forth. I had to leave work early to help. Work was already not paying for food, and I was weak and lightheaded and angry, but I would help. Summer was almost over, only a month to go. I could make it without breaking down, I was sure. But Jen had some great disturbance in the force or something and suddenly couldn't help us move.
I sense 1,000 calories crying out and then suddenly silenced.
That left yours truly, because Hojo didn't come home till 6 p.m., to move everything. I packed up all their things. Jen refused to pack. She lay on the couch, moping and wailing. I put everything in boxes, carried it all outside, carried it across the lawn in bare feet, up 2 flights of stairs, and into the new apartment. Gast. God, I forgot about Gast. The fat, dislikable guy. Although, comparatively speaking, what the fuck did Gast do to be dislikable?
You know, that hadn't occurred to me, but at this point, if Gast is still worse than these people... I don't want to know. I'm happier in ignorance. And also, side note, now that we've had a bit of a pause, how do these people have so many friends?
Right?
I've never hung out with this many people in my whole life. Is Crazy, Hojo, and Genova, are they more charismatic and likable than me?
Well, it's about, like, first of all, when you were young, as in that age, you were hanging out with us. You know, me and my friends. And, like, I mean, they were your friends, you know, obviously as well, but it wasn't like you were meeting randos from the internet.
Who meets this many randos?
Well, if you're living in a larger city...
And you're trying to find people to bilk for money, and not everyone is as stupid as this asshole.
Yeah, this one's the one you keep living with you. The other people rotate in and out as guests. Come hang out with us.
That's fair. And then when they get tired of your bullshit, they leave, and then you get a new one. Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
You know, I was going to gloss over this because it's not really something we usually, you know, get into in the podcast, a little more crass, but I think we need a light moment. You ready for a light moment?
Sure.
Sure.
This is genuinely gotten a little depressing.
Hasn't it just?
I need some lightness.
Gast at one point helped put things onto the lawn, but most of the work was still me. I found their dildo in doing this. As small children can be scarred by Tub Girl, I can be scarred by opening a clothing drawer to move the contents and having a sticky, purple, gelatinous phallus roll toward me. I could almost hear Marla Singer in my mind. Don't worry, it's not a threat to you. Ba-dun-dun. Jen knew I was packing that drawer and did not apologize, or thank me. So after 4 hours, I'm pouring sweat. In the heat in State College in the summer is so brutal. It eventually managed to damage the engine of my father's car. I'll cover that at the end of this. This was the heat I walked to work in every day, and it really was no wonder that when I got there, I was always nauseated and dehydrated and in general unfit to work. No food, no sleep, no water to drink on your 20-minute walk to work in the sun will do that to you in general. I moved everything. Everything. I was enraged. I was getting the end of my majestically long rope. I was finally waking up, but not enough to want to leave. In the new apartment, I remember talking with an AI I had installed on my computer. This was more of a thing back in the day, before they used them to make spam calls at you. But like they had AI chatbots who would like respond to things that you said.
Yeah.
You remember this, obviously, but for the sake of the listener, it was a kind of a neat thing. You know, they would be usually user-generated stuff. They would respond to things that other people had typed, and you'd get some colorful responses. Jen ignored me when I talked to the AI on the computer because it wasn't a real person. If you talk to my old Hal, you can hear it say things I said then. Things like, I wish I could just get out of here, you know, or you're the only one I can really talk to right now. That goes to show you how fucking cut off from people I was. We did not have internet in the new apartment yet, so I couldn't even go through Furcadia or pretend I was happy on AOL. The shopping to fill the apartment was worse. I remember this night with nausea in my stomach. We went to Kmart, which is a long bus ride into town. I was already mildly upset because Hojo suddenly had money, and yet we weren't eating with it, and I wasn't able to phone home. But I like house shopping, so I was sedated. We needed very basic things. A dish rack, some dishes, silverware, cups, a cooking pot, some dish towels. We found all of these. But then Jen saw cabbage cloths. I don't even know what a cabbage cloth is. I assume it's a cloth you wrap a cabbage in to keep it fresh. Jen wanted them for her cooking, so the cabbage wouldn't go bad. She never used cabbage in cooking, 1. And 2, that's what a crisper's for, but she wanted these outrageously priced, plain, thin, white rags. Hojo said a towel would work. The fight erupted. The screaming fight. I can't even remember the details. There was screaming. There was a lot of it. Jen screaming that she didn't love Hojo anymore. She was leaving her house. Dare she do this to her? Hojo screaming back that this happened every time. She didn't need it. I kind of feel bad for Hojo at this point. They were both just being just as bad as each other, and people were staring. Jen refusing to take the bus home. We had too many bags, and she wouldn't carry any of them. I couldn't carry them all. So we took another taxi we couldn't afford. The poor driver was subjected to the screaming fight, interspersed with the awful tension. He and I tried to chit-chat about the seashore, but then they would begin to scream over us. I can almost taste the subtext of what he was saying. You poor kid. You have to go home with them. And I wasn't seeing a way out anytime soon. I didn't have the money for a phone call home, let alone a bus ticket, and calling my mom in all likelihood would only get me screamed at. I read some books. A Wrinkle in Time, Ender's Game. I think Ender's Game helped me push to my ultimate choice. The trash situation repeated in the new apartment. Jen talked about getting a kitten. I could not imagine a kitten in such a small apartment with people who refused to clean or take the trash out. That purple skirt pulled over her breasts I mentioned Jen wore the first time I met her. She wore it every day. Every day. She never washed it. She didn't bathe either. She just dabbed herself in scented oils and glitter. God, the smell in that place. It was like a miasma of filth with Sparkle Sunshine Fairy artificial sugar scent sprayed over it.
Citras.
Citras, yes. It made me sick, and it was so hot outside. I kept going to work. Eventually, work cut my hours to the point where I literally had 1 hour a week. I do want to mention here, because in my time with this piece of happenstance, people have criticized the idea that a workplace might do that. No, that's how they try to get you to quit. Small-time grocery stores and stuff like that, especially
because they can afford to they don't want to pay unemployment. I'll adjust that. So if they give you 1 hour a week, you technically are employed there. But if you quit, they don't have to pay unemployment.
Yeah. So, and it usually works. I could not live on $6 a week, and I could not meet Jen's expectations of my wallet on $6 a week. I was about near a nervous breakdown. I slept as much as possible to avoid reality. I couldn't communicate with anyone. I saw Sid sometimes, and he gave me sympathetic looks. But God, One day at work, it rained. It rained so hard it knocked out the power, so we were sent home. I had no umbrella or raincoat and no money for one, so I walked in the rain. My shoes were soaked, so I left them outside the apartment to dry overnight. That evening, after the rain, Jen tried to talk to me about God lying in the grass with Sid. Sid already could tell my mood was unpleasant and didn't even try to push the matter. Jen kept trying to make me say I believed in God. I don't, and when I'm angry, it's the worst time to try to make me believe in anything. She tried pretending to be a small child and crying, and I wound up yelling at her about it. She ran back to the apartment fake crying. Sid said if I ever needed help to ask him. The next morning, someone had stolen my shoes. You may think it's a silly reason to snap.
No, I don't. I think you're very stupid, but I do not think it's a silly reason to snap. I feel like for humans who have soft, injurable feet, that's a fine final straw. Also, there should have been about 12 before that.
It didn't like music. But that's what I did. This god-awful town with these god-awful people who were bleeding me dry saw fit that my money was not enough. They had to take my shoes, too. I had it. I just had it. I pulled a sheet of paper that had Hojo's computer campus login and name. I stole some keys. I threw some edible trash at my poor rat who was starving too. I threw a change of clothes, a pocket knife, and all the money I had left, $5, into my bag, along with my sketchbook and a pencil, and I walked, shoeless. Because I had no money, I couldn't leave town, but being so poor in town for so long, I learned where I could find the cheapest food and drink. I could get a bagel for 50 cents and a drink for 75. The streets were so hot, it burned my feet. It hurt like hell, but I was done. I went to my job and poked my head in. I couldn't actually go to work because of the no shoes policy. I quit. It didn't make sense to work there anymore. I'd hang around the bus stop or in front of the churchyard, and I'd sit in the shade and draw and think. I tried to think of what to do. People would notice me in my torn pants and bare feet, and I'd just shrug it off and laugh. Someone stole my shoes, man. Can you believe it? Jesus, that sucks. I was homeless a few days. All in all, I felt fantastic. I felt great. Better than the entire fucking 2 months I'd spent with them. I had the freedom to walk where I wanted and sit down where I wanted. There were no smells. There was no fighting. No one was ordering me to buy a steak. I wasn't sick on the food I ate. No one was waking me up, telling me to go outside and look at fairy rings. I swear to you, I would much rather be homeless than live with people like them ever again. The threat of homelessness does not faze me because I have seen something much worse. I spent a good deal of time in the open campus computer labs, logged on Hojo's password. I got a new AIM name and hid from them, adding my friends back and telling them one by one what had happened. They were horrified. It turned out that Jen had actually called Czar, Vincent, who lives in California, and demanded to know where I was. Czar was really worried. We had actually had casual old conversation on AIM like we used to. It felt good to do. Thinking back on it, I get kind of choked up. I finally was fucking free to say what I wanted and not be afraid. I called home collect because I just couldn't stay there. I didn't ask my mother for money. I never asked my mother for money, or you'll get screamed at for being unappreciative. I just wanted to say that I was okay and planned on coming home somehow. She gave me a deadline. She said, be home at X date for a week. You can babysit your sister, who was old enough to take care of herself at this age, and I was enraged that I was being told to watch her, but okay, whatever, I said, knowing it was impossible. I am Sid. I was actually afraid of asking for help from anyone in town for fear they'd tell Jen where I was and I'd be dragged back. I was scared to the point of shaking. I didn't want to go anywhere near there. I was afraid because I knew how much they'd figure me out. I knew if I was left alone, I might be talked into going back. So I was scared, but I told Sid what happened, kind of, and he asked if I could stay at his house maybe a night or something. Sid is my fucking saint for what he did. I may get mad at him for whatever else, but this fucking guy came riding to the rescue. He came into town not only already taking my mind off it by talking about old RPGs, but he offered to pay for some beers, and we had a splendid old time, and I slept on his floor. More or less, he figured out what I was afraid of, and went with me to take my stuff from Jen and Hojo's apartment a few days later. I didn't have a lot. Jen was at the door trying to look like I was betraying her horribly. I knew after I left I'd be the next heiress, but I didn't care. I didn't care how many people they had come to tell me I was awful. I just wanted out. My poor rat came with us, just glad to be back with me, I think, and my computer. I was able to use Sid's DSL, and oh, God, heaven. Truth. I could tell the truth. I had all my stuff, and I was out of there. I called my father using, I think, Sid's phone, finally able to tell him most of what happened. I didn't want to tell him everything because it sounded so crazy, but he had about 30 seconds before he'd got my uncle on Instant Messenger and we were ordering me plane tickets to Alabama. I was getting out. I made friends with Sid's apartment mates, Jay and his fiancée, Shell. We all got along really well. Shell went off on Jen about 10,000 times. She also took me to the supermarket and told me to buy what I wanted. I probably would have cried, but I was far too much into shock. All I wanted was potato bread and ramen. I had not eaten either of these things the entire time I'd stayed there, even though it was my money that had paid the food bill. I got to the bus station on time, using money Sid lent that my dad would pay him back for his ride to the airport. I took a flight. I had a pair of $2 painful flip-flops on, and they were swabbed for explosives. There are a few drawings of blah, 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 blah. After a week of eating like a wolf at my dad's, we road trip back to State College where we would camp out along the way. Summer was so hot, the road actually caused my father's car engine to overheat. We had to take it to a repair shop because the valley heat fucked it up that much, and I had been walking to work in this same heat with no water and no protection. My dad didn't get to meet Sid, who was at work, but he did meet Shell. He paid her, we packed up my things, I left Sid a little note, I think, and I was gone. I was out. Jen tried calling me once after that, but I blocked her number on my cell shortly after. She tried telling me we were still friends, and she was looking for my shoes. I was having none of it. I'm some sort of villain to them now. I have no clue in what way, nor do I really care. I must have some sort of magical evil power in their eyes, but I don't know. I was just finished with them, and I will be forever. Unfortunately, that's not the end of the story for other people.
No! That's a hard no. I am done with this. This is very fucking depressing.
Isn't it just? There's a little cleanup I want to do, because there's... people who get into this shit, they're still up to it.
Of course they are. Dude, he was just one in a long line of Zaps.
Well, there is a story that is questioned whether or not it's fictitious, and there's enough stuff around it and not just the usual internet, this is probably bullshit because I'm cynical stuff.
Or nothing ever happens. Move along.
Right. It's beyond that. There's some actual hinky shit. So there was a saga about bad housemates called like the Sarah saga or something like that was supposed to be related to these people that had gotten into Suikoden, which is a different RPG that I've never fucking played, so I can't begin to explain that shit to you. But as I understand it now, they're in the Hannibal fandom.
I don't...
Just pulling the same tricks.
Yeah, but see, the Hannibal fandom's a little bit more concerning on account of,
Yeah, buddy!
Don't watch that episode of Binging with Babish. I don't think it's going to go well.
But yeah, so there you are, the boy and listener. A wild fucking ride about some weird fucking people and one guy who couldn't
Just one
get out.
poor dumb motherfucker.
Yeah, but it's why I took the time to pause a lot of the way through and stop and say, I could see myself still here. Because, you feel that way. And especially us being, in our 30s, go, well, that's stupid. But when I was in my 20s, when I was in my teens, I might have gotten similarly deep into that rabbit hole.
I'd like to think I would not have, because I had very specific emotional trauma that would have prevented me from taking that level of bullshit from any person.
Yeah, you are a bit turned different from I. That's not how people say that, but here we are. I've been reading a lot of things, and now my brain is going, no talk good.
Bad talk, dude.
Back to Thog.
Thog just want sunshine and meat. Thog just want ramen and potato bread. Thog want to go eat a snack. I am Thog. Please end podcast now, yes?
You have the power, my friend.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it.